This is a CTV News special presentation.
As a father, but also as a leader, I'm extremely worried. Let's be honest, things are challenging. Cost of living's going up, people are having trouble paying bills. We won't give in to those who fly racist flags. The federal government has invoked the Emergencies Act to address the blockades and occupations. Canada stands with Ukraine. There is no place for Russia as a constructive partner to anyone. China knows we'll stand up for human rights. We'll stand with people who are expressing themselves. There will be things we will disagree on, and we will have.
Let's create the conditions first.
From Toronto's historic Kensington Market, a conversation with the Prime Minister. Here is Omar Sachedina.
Good to see you again.
Good to see you as well. Doing well, doing well.
It's a great neighborhood.
Listen, I used to come here all the time. We get Chinese food or jerk chicken or just anything. It's one of those pockets.
And I think
awesome.
it really is a testament to Canada's immigration history. You have people from all over the world here. One of the great parts about this market is all the fruit stands. And when Canadians have gone grocery shopping this year, they're paying more for less, right? Everything is costing more. How concerned are you about the economic headwinds next year?
Oh, extremely concerned. I mean, you can't talk to a Canadian family without hearing people worried about, challenged with the situation they've been facing over the past months, and worried about what we know is going to be a tough year next year. But that's why we also see the very best of Canadians as people step up for each other, as neighbors have been helping neighbors, as our institutions have been stepping up, as a government we've been delivering more support to people. I mean, that's what we do as Canadians in tough times, and that's what we're going to continue to do.
How much more support do you think you can offer Canadians next year? Because many economists are predicting that there will be a recession. The government has spent an unprecedented amount of money in terms of stimulus spending. What more can the federal government do without adding to inflationary pressures?
Well, first of all, let's understand that Canada has the lowest deficit in the G7. We have one of the strongest fiscal balances of any of our peer countries, and that's partially because we were there to support Canadians who need it during the difficult times of the pandemic. Investing in supports for families, for workers, for seniors, for youth, for small businesses is exactly what allowed our economy to bounce back so strong. And that's what we've continued to do, and that's what we're going to continue to do.
But concretely, what does that mean? Does that mean that Canada is in a good position and your government is in a good position to be able to offer even more supports than it has over the past couple of years? Will you be opening up the coffers, or will it be more targeted spending?
We've always focused on the targeting spending, even from the beginning. Our very first thing was to bring in a Canada Child Benefit that stopped sending supports to millionaire families and delivered them instead to families that needed them. What we did this fall with 11 million households with the GST credit, with the support for dental care for families that couldn't send their kids to the dentist, or even with the housing top-up, we're very, very targeted on the people who need it most. And that means we're not contributing to inflation while we're there to support people.
Thank you. See you guys.
The price of just about everything has shot up. You go to the grocery store, you're paying more for things like lettuce and fruits. Carrying costs on homes have also shot up. What is your government doing to protect Canadians next year?
Well, I think, first of all, understanding we're in a very difficult global context. The war in Ukraine that's continuing, the continued disruptions around global supply chains, the challenges that China's facing with its coming out of the zero COVID policy has put a lot of pressure on a lot of different parts of the world. And Canada's no different. We are a little bit better off than most countries around the world because we have slightly more robust supply chains around energy, around other things. But we're still dealing with global headwinds. And that's why even though we have a very, very strong financial position overall, we're not hesitating to support people through this. Things that will help Canadians through at a very difficult time, because we know this year was tough. Because of the global situation, the first half of next year is likely to be tough as well, but Canadians continue to be there for each other.
But there's no government that can keep spending at this level. And there may be a position now next year where Canadians need even more supports. Specifically, will that happen, and how could it happen?
Well, first of all, the Canadians are right to be alert to whether the financial health of their country is good or not. And of course, governments will say, yes, it's good, and opposition members will say, no, it's terrible. That's why it's useful to look at what the international bond rating agencies say about the fiscal plan and fiscal support of a country. Canada is the third largest AAA rating in the world. We have the best fiscal position of any of our G7 peers. Most of our peer countries lower deficit than all of them. We're in a very good position, which allows us to both be there with generous, targeted supports where necessary, but also continue to remain fiscally responsible. And that's the path we've walked over the past few years. A number of people said the kinds of COVID supports we put out were problematic for our going into debt, and certainly we did take on a lot of debt. But what we also saw was we had a faster economic recovery, and our fiscal position coming out of the pandemic is better than most other countries, even as we had a less bad pandemic, because we were there for small businesses, for workers, for families.
So what does that mean for next year then? Will there be that continued targeted spending on the heels of what has already been unprecedented spending?
Well, what we spent this fall in targeted supports on GST, on rental and dental and other things was calibrated to not contribute to the inflation crisis, which it didn't. That spending had a negligible, if any, impact on inflation. We're going to maintain our ability to do things and look at what we need to do.
You've struck a deal with the NDP, a party that wants you to spend billions more on programs such as pharmacare. There are some economists who feel that, particularly as we're facing these economic headwinds, that austerity may be the way to go. What's your red line with the NDP? I mean, is there a point where you say, no, this is too expensive, this is too much money, and are you willing to take a position on that red line, even if it means triggering an election?
Well, first of all, you talk about austerity, and yes, it is unfortunate that a number of people, including the Conservative Party, still talk about austerity, that you can cut your way into better balance for people. They're talking about going after seniors' pensions. They're talking about holding back on EI. These are things that we fundamentally disagree with. We know that supporting people in the right way matters. Now, there were a lot of concerns in our first budget after signing that confidence and supply agreement with the NDP that we were going to put forward an NDP massive spending style budget. What our budget in 2022 actually put forward was an extremely responsible, balanced approach that had everyone reaffirming our AAA credit ratings, that Canada was on solid financial backing.
So what's your red line with the NDP? At one point, do you
what
say
is good for Canadians or not? That's our line with everyone. What makes sense? What doesn't make sense?
Is there something that they currently want that you will stop at? You'll just say, no, we can't do this because it costs too much?
Well, you can look at any of the things that they've put forward and see, well, we did that one, we agree with them on that. Other ones we're not doing. Well, we won't do the things that we don't think are good for Canadians or good for our future.
And what do you think that is?
Well, give me a proposal what they're talking about.
Into pharmacare.
Pharmacare, we've been committed to reducing prescription drug prices for Canadians in real, tangible ways. We've moved forward with a $500 million high-cost drugs for rare diseases strategy that's taking a huge amount of pressure off some of the provincial issues. We're creating bulk purchasing power. We're creating a Canada drug agency to make sure that we're getting efficiencies and lower prices. There's a lot of things we're doing as we keep moving towards lowering prescription drug prices for everyone.
When we return,
When are you going to lift all the restrictions?
How do you respond to a gentleman like that?
Sir, why don't you come on over?
Come
conversation with the Prime Minister continues